Okay, everybody, I'm going to call the planning and works. I love using that. Okay. I know. Okay, all right, we're just going to keep rolling. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Planning and Works Committee meeting on February 6, 2024. I'll now call on the committee clerk to conduct the roll call.
Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Craig. Councillor Deutschman. Councillor Erb. Here. Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Harris. Councillor Hunick.
Present.
Chair James.
Present.
Councillor Liggett. Councillor McCabe.
Present.
Councillor Nowak. Councillor Salonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Verbanovich. Here. Councillor Williams.
Present.
And Councillor Wolf.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge that the land in which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinanton people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to the community. We will now vote to reconvene in open session. I need a mover, Councillor Foxton, seconder, Councillor Hunick. You will now be prompted on e-scribe momentarily. Okay, that is carried. Item number 4, declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. Delegations. I do believe we have one today. There's no presentations. We do have a delegation. We will now proceed with the delegations, and I'd like to remind the delegations of some guidelines for participation. For those joining us in person, please please come down to the podium when you're asked and your name is called. Press the button, and when the green light is lit up, that means the microphone is on. You will have 5 minutes. Anyone who is registered after the deadline will receive 3 minutes. And just if you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in immediate removal from the meeting. That includes interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, turning your camera on at inappropriate times, and any hate speech or defamatory comments. So I'd like to call on the first delegation. Isaac? You're here. Thank you. Head of Corporate Affairs, Neuron Mobility. You've got 5 minutes. Welcome, Isaac.
Good afternoon. Again, Isaac Ransom, Head of Corporate Affairs for Neuromobility Canada. I'm here to speak to the micromobility item that's before committee today. There's a lot of information within the package that was provided for the agenda item today, but I am here to talk a little bit about some of the information that might not be apparent in the report, and to answer any questions potentially you might have today. Next slide, please. So we've now completed the first year of the pilot here in Waterloo region. A fairly successful year by all accounts. Riders racked up almost 400,000 kilometers of rides here in the region between the 3 municipalities participating in the program. And over 190,000 rides completed with 71,000 unique signups, with an average rating by our riders of 4 out of 5 this year. We had a lot of interesting opportunities to engage with the community this year, and a lot of safety events that we took part in, and gave out a number of helmets. We figure that to be about 250 this year in educating riders around helmet safety and the bylaws here in the municipality. Next slide, please. One thing that we've been finding in a lot of our communities is that councils are particularly interested in the economic opportunity that shared micromobility programs are creating within those communities. We saw some pretty interesting statistics emerge here in the region this year and the time that the program operated. In total, we estimate the economic impact to be above $8.2 million. This year, with the average e-scooter generating a spend of about $16,445 per unit. We also know that a number of these trips would not have occurred if an e-scooter wasn't present, so that means that a lot of individuals would not be out spending money at local businesses if an e-scooter wasn't available. And so we see those sorts of trends, and we also see a number of trips replacing car rides within the city and integrating with public transit. In general, most people are out shopping and going to restaurants. In our surveying of how people were spending, these were generally the trends that we saw emerge, which were very encouraging in terms of how people are using e-scooters to travel and to visit local amenities. Next slide, please. We've also spent a significant amount of time on rider safety here in the region this year across the 3 communities that are participating in the program. We provided over 35 community Scoot Safe events. These are our flagship safety events where we engage with businesses that invite us to come in and give presentations and provide demos and give out helmets and those sorts of things. We also take part in a number of municipal events that are put on by the various local municipalities as well, and even those that are outside of the catchment area of the program, we took part in events there as well. So a lot of awareness raising within the community and sharing information around the rules and regulations for shared e-scooters and e-bikes in the municipality. We also had these events staffed with our safety ambassadors who engage and educate riders, and I had the pleasure of taking part in a number of these events myself this year as well. So well attended and a lot of people learning about micromobility. Next slide, please. We also have a number of flagship in-app education events that we run throughout the year for key kind of safety initiatives that are run across Canada, one of those being Road Safety Week. And this is just an example of some of the direct education that we do in-app. So before riders start their trip, these are the sorts of things that pop up on their phone, and they need to acknowledge these rules and the re-education opportunity that's there for them before they start their trip. With that, I'll wrap up. I know we're kind of short on presentation time, but I'm also happy to answer questions pertaining to this presentation and the council report.
Thank you, Isaac. We do have one question. Councillor McCabe, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, thanks for coming in today, Isaac, and congratulations on a successful first year of operation. Just a couple questions. Wondered if you could, I'm wondering about accessible devices, if it's possible, or you have any of those that could be added to the fleet. I'm also wondering about extending the service area and the possibility of that, and then and if it could, what your thoughts are in terms of extending it beyond. I think it ended this year at October 31st, but there's winter biking. Winters sometimes aren't as harsh. Do these operate well beyond just October 31st to extend that season?
Certainly, through you, Chair. Mayor, to your last question, yes, we can operate through the winter months if permitted by the municipalities. So if we receive approval, our batteries operate in very cold conditions with a great deal of stability, comfortably around -15 to -20. And if the conditions are, appropriate for riding, we can keep the fleet on. And if there's a snow event or a weather event that, makes it unsafe, we can disable the fleet literally with the click of a button. So we do that in other municipalities right now. For example, the city of Calgary still has their program running. The city of Coquitlam in British Columbia has their program going. We just wrapped up our operations in Lethbridge a few weeks ago in Alberta. So we're happy to do that if there's a way to do it, but we all understand there's competing priorities in the streets in terms of street cleaning and snow clearing and all those sorts of things that happen in the transition of seasons. So if there's a way to do it, we're happy to have that conversation with the local municipalities and offer that service. To the question about the riding area, I guess it's expansion. Yeah, certainly those are conversations that we can have with the local partners, and we're happy to look at how to expand and where to expand. And sorry, the first question again was? Accessible devices, yes, of course. And with the devices, we've already had a number of touch points with community stakeholders around potential devices that we can offer. Unfortunately, in the province of Ontario, there are regulations that prevent seated e-scooters. So that's not a device that we can currently offer unless there's an amendment to the regulations. But we do have some other devices such as hand pedal bicycles that we've been getting feedback on, as well as some other electronic devices that we feel would be permitted in the province of Ontario. And these programs that we're looking at running would be those where we're contacted by individuals who want the device, and then we deliver it for ease, or we have a central checkpoint where these devices are stored. So we're working not only with the region, but with the local municipalities on what that accessible program could look like, and when we'd be able to start offering it, hopefully this year, if the community wants it. Yeah.
Thank you. And just, I also had a question about the
Councillor
cost.
McCabe, we've got quite a few
sorry.
people in the
Okay, I
queue,
thought I
so
could
we
have
can
a
come back
follow-up,
to you.
but okay.
Councillor?
Thank you, Chair James. First, Isaac, I want to commend you on your customer service. When there had been an issue in the last, in this trial year, and we would call, the response was always very, very prompt, very, very helpful. And so I commend you for that, and thank you for that kind of that's the service you gave. I have a couple of questions. I guess I'm just going to be allowed one according to the chair. Someplace in the report, we're talking with staff about pads, areas of where the bikes are. Do you use bicycle, or not bicycle racks, but racks kinds of a thing in some centers? Is that a possibility? Because one of the observations has been that the existing bicycle racks are being used for your vehicle, and then there's no space for the other bicycle racks. So I'm wondering if you could comment on that, please.
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question, Councillor, and certainly we always strive to provide good customer service, and we do have some innovations coming to market, so hopefully it gets better this year. In terms of parking, this was certainly a major issue early on in the pilot when we launched last year. We have a very, I don't want to say, stringent approval process for parking areas that we do with our local partners, but it's a process that ensures that we try to find the correct locations. One of the things that you suggested was some infrastructure to help riders identify maybe where they should be parking instead of where they shouldn't be. And that's certainly something that we've provided some feedback on, and we've introduced some soft infrastructure this year already, which are the parking mats that you may have seen in some parts of Kitchener already. We also have some corrals that we can look at as well, and these are ongoing discussions, and I think it's something we're very open to looking at if it can help solve some of those parking pain points, and making those sort of strategic investments with our local partners. In addition to that, we already have some pretty good technology in the app to help riders that we've introduced this year. One of them is our augmented reality parking function. When a rider scans where they've ended their trip, if it can't identify the background area where the e-scooter is, the trip doesn't end, and that directs them to a more appropriate area to park. And so we've introduced that technology, and that will continue to become more effective, I think, this year as well. But certainly, we're very happy to look at the soft infrastructure option that you've suggested today, and hopefully that helps solve some of those problems. And we've definitely heard them, and we're definitely looking to find creative solutions for them.
If I just may continue on this. Well, it's not another question, it's just a comment on this. Okay. There's an element of it looks unkept when they're laying all over. And also, I would think safety for people that are walking by if these bikes are laying over. So I think that's another reason to work at that.
Through you, Chair. Sorry, I know tight on time. I would say yes. Point taken that at times some of the parking locations are overcrowded. We have been looking to work with local partners and expand the riding area and the number of parking areas that are there. One of the realities of the circumstances that we have right now is that there's a premium on, street infrastructure. And so we're trying to solve that problem with more small parking areas and limiting the number of scooters that can end there. I think we're only going to get better as we optimize the program this year. And point taken, I'll take that back to the team for sure to try and find improvements. And I know we're making improvements on the back end of our operations on how to better service those vehicles when we get a notification that they aren't parked properly.
Okay, I've got a few counselors in the queue, and then I think Commissioner Regier is just going to speak a little bit to this before we move on. So, Counselor Williams.
Oh, hi, thank you. Through you, Chair. I just had a question because I've had a couple of people come to me with concerns about people scootering while drunk. As we all know, we have a very high student population, and I have heard of a few injuries. Again, that's not really against the actual scooters or the operator, it would be the operators of the vehicles. So I know that you talked about a safety campaign and doing some more information sessions for people of how to be safe using these electric devices. But I was just wondering, because as we all know, like people who are drunk, they have impaired judgment and they tend to ignore warnings such as stickers, signs, and things on the app. So is there anything else that you guys are working on that we can really encourage our people to ride safer? Especially kind of later at night, I feel like that's when it's happening. But.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Councillor, thank you for the question. There are a number of things that we've looked at this year when we've been made aware of some of these reports of riding while potentially inebriated. There is a lot of education in the app, and there's warnings on the scooters, of course, around that. Later in the evening, we do have a reaction game that goes on that does force riders to test their ability to respond to, it's kind of like a game and how quickly they can respond. And it basically indicates to them that maybe they've had a few too many beverages. And in that case, it then directs them to a prompt to call a taxi. So we do have that program ongoing in our communities and areas that we know that are problems, and we do have our safety ambassadors out, and then we can optimize the riding areas at certain times of the evening. So those are things that we have looked at. I think for this coming year, we do have some learnings around where some of these areas may be, and we're working with some of the local partners and businesses to better understand how to manage this, and particularly engaging more with law enforcement who we know have provided some feedback on what they're going to do as well. So I think it's a combination of things this year, and hopefully we can reduce that kind of behavior. But I think some of it too is a learning curve for riders. They don't necessarily assess an e-scooter to be the same as a motor vehicle, but it is classified as a vehicle. They can be charged for impaired driving, and we are sharing that's an issue. And if they are participating in that kind of behavior, obviously there's implications for that if they do become involved in an incident. And so those are things we are working on. And it's not just a challenge here; it's a challenge in markets for all operators.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair James. This is a good news story, and I no doubt you want to build on it. I notice in the report the average trip distance is 2.12 kilometers. And one of the discussions that we had a year ago when you were launching the program was the connectivity. And I'm just wondering, as you build on the momentum, are you looking at maybe downtown areas and ways to build on the success that you've had to date?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. We certainly are looking to build on the success, and I think connectivity is a big part. And you'll see in the report how the riding area has expanded this year, particularly down towards Conestoga and through that catchment in Kitchener and in Waterloo. I think we're going to continue to look at areas in Cambridge as well, with the local municipality there. And those are conversations for this year, and we have some feedback for staff on how we think we can create greater connectivity at those points. I certainly think that what we're seeing right now in terms of riding trends is pretty normal for the average trip, but we do see longer commutes with a lot of riders, particularly in areas where there may be transit deserts or inaccessibility to getting to a transit stop quickly, or it's more convenient, whatever the case may be. And so certainly having a larger riding area, particularly in a region like this, it's certainly going to potentially generate some longer trips and become a more stable mode of transportation for some riders. And so the goal is always to try and assist riders that way. And in addition to that, we are also, in the feedback we've had from staff, looking at how to promote some of our pass options as well, which make more affordable rides and create a little bit more consistency for riders in terms of what they can expect in terms of cost and availability of their e-scooter as well. So a couple of things we're working on to try and improve on that.
Councillor Hunick.
Thank you, Chair James. Building on Chair Redmond's question, there are some neighborhoods in Waterloo, particularly Vista Hills, that is in great need of public transit. I was pleased to read in the Neuron report that there are ways to use the Neuron scooters in order to connect with transit. In the meantime, while neighborhoods such as Vista Hills waits for transit, is there a plan to incorporate Neuron scooters into the Vista Hills neighborhood? And do you know when that will be coming online?
I don't know. Sorry, through you, Chair. Sorry. My response is I don't know at the moment what the timing would be on that. But certainly if there's a request from yourself and other members of council, or if that's the desire of council, that's certainly something that we'd be willing to do. We've always, noted that expanding the riding area is a good thing into communities where there's demand. And so if there's a willingness to, by the local council to do that, we're certainly more than happy to accommodate that. That's not an issue at all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think that's something we can take back to staff as well to discuss with you in area municipalities that want to expand. Councillor Liggett.
Thanks, Isaac, for this. Is there a place where we can go to get an update on the problems and the problem areas that you speak of, and how you're trying to find solutions, to, like what advancements you've made as far as finding solutions to those?
Through you, Chair. Sorry, you mean in terms of the areas where we have problem parking?
No, you said there have been problems and using the scooters while inebriated is one, and
Yes.
you said there were problem locations as well. So
Yes. Yeah. Through you, Chair, thank you for the clarification. We know that particularly where there are establishments that are serving alcohol, those are certainly higher risk areas. And so we do have a number of approaches that, we've looked at. One is implementing the game after a certain time, particularly on the weekends. So it comes on, Friday in the evening to alert riders to create that extra barrier. Our safety ambassadors are out every evening as well. We've had conversations with local stakeholders in the area, and one of the things in those particular areas that we've talked about is that we may need to look at alternative parking arrangements. So ensuring that, they're not as accessible out front of some establishments as others, and those sorts of things in terms of how we organize the fleet at different times of the day. So we can look at a number of those sorts of options. It really is, though, difficult for us to determine without a degree of enforcement on how many infractions there actually are, how many of these people are actually potentially using these scooters while having had some alcohol. So these are all things that we need to kind of work on, and I'll be the first one to say, we're always looking to improve on the products that we're offering and the education that we have around that. So it's a serious issue. It's something that we're very open to working on with all the municipalities, and we're open to other ideas as well on how to manage those issues.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
So as far as the being inebriated, there's no requirement for a driver's license for these, correct? So there's really no enforcement capability here, because you can't pull a driver's license that somebody isn't required to have. So have you considered requiring a license?
Through you, Chair, currently under the provincial regulations, a license isn't required to operate a shared e-scooter or a shared e-bike. The laws are applicable for inebriated riding on an e-scooter as they would be a vehicle with or without a license. So there is the mechanisms there to enforce the laws around traffic safety. And so that's beyond our ability, whether it's a private e-scooter or a shared e-scooter. Those are issues that kind of transcend beyond what we are able to do as an organization. But certainly that's what's currently available as options for enforcement.
We just have, there's,
Sorry,
Councilor
Councilor.
Banovic hasn't spoken. Is it quick, Councilor Liggett?
Yeah.
Because then we're
Sorry,
about to go
Councilor.
into round
I'll try
two.
to be more
Okay.
concise.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Thanks, Councilor.
Councilor Banovic.
Thank you very much. Great job, great customer service, great growth. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. That was a very, very good question.
Okay, I've got Councilor Erb, Councilor Liggett, Councilor McCabe. Did you want to loop back in? And then we're going to move on, as this is a consent agenda item, and I want Commissioner Regier to just speak a little bit to this.
Well, if you want Commissioner Regier to go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Regier.
Yeah, thank you, Chair James. I just wanted to say that, I think I sense a real enthusiasm in our transportation and transit teams for this type of innovation. It's an important part of our strategy to shift mobility patterns in the region. We've made some big commitments about that and about reducing greenhouse gases and trying to find new ways to move around the region. So this kind of innovation is a really important part of that. I also just wanted to mention that we will be doing launching this program in April, so stay tuned for spring appearance of these mobility tools all over the region, and we look forward to engaging with Neuron in the next in 2024.
Thank you. Councilor Erb.
I have a question on helmets. There's no mechanism within the vehicle that they can't make this thing go unless they take the helmet off where it's stored. And I'm horrified the number of people I see just tearing down the trails with their hair blowing in the air and the helmet on the handlebars, and wondering about the liability. Like, where does that lie? Does it lie with the provider? Does it provide with the municipality?
Through you, Chair. Helmet safety is something that we, talk extensively about with our riders. We do run a helmet safety campaign through the year in addition to Road Safety Week. Not only do we basically put it in the app everywhere that you should be wearing a helmet, we believe it's the single most important piece of safety equipment on the e-scooter that we provide. We incentivize the use of helmets, so you get a credit towards your ride if you take a selfie with it before you start your trip. The scooter talks to you and tells you to wear a helmet, and so we continually reinforce that messaging in addition to our on-street interventions as well. We do know that there is a very high rate of unclips of the helmet where people make the conscious decision to say, I have my own helmet, or they unclip the helmet. To your point around mandatory helmet where the scooter isn't able to start, what we find is when that technology is implemented, people hang the helmets on the side of the scooter bar and then they throw the helmet away, which is a problem in terms of littering and distracting traffic. So it's one of those complicated issues where we try to solve the problem by doing something like that. We create another problem which could be dangerous to another person sharing the road or using a sidewalk. So imagine somebody going on a scooter and a helmet flying off a handlebar into a car windshield or something. So we have those issues that we're contending with. And so that's why we have very clear messaging around the helmet rules, why we have the helmet clip there, that if the rider chooses to wear their own helmet or for whatever reason doesn't feel comfortable wearing it because they're unable to use the helmet, they can put it back in the clip. But we continue to strive to get high compliance on helmets. It really, at the end of the day, in addition to education, it comes down to enforcement, and there are limited tools, to do that, I believe, or resources, on that end. So, we're open to other ideas. We always want people to wear helmets, but beyond the technology that we have in place and the constant communication to riders, we are limited in what we can do without, causing another issue as well.
What about liability?
Oh, sorry, Councillor. Yes, through you, Chair. So we do provide insurance to our riders if they void their terms of the agreement. So, For example, if they aren't wearing a helmet, depending on the circumstances, that would be assessed at the time of the incident and what the nature of it was. I couldn't speculate. But we do have requirements here in the municipality, and riders agree to the terms and conditions, and at which point they have an agreement with us to comply by the local rules set out by the municipality. I don't want to come up with hypothetical situations, but wearing a helmet would be very important if something were to happen.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. I guess my question is, well, I have a question for Isaac and one for staff. Can I ask staff
Okay,
a
so
question
just,
now,
I'm just going to.
or just the delegate?
So this is an item for the consent agenda. So if you want to pull the report, we can do that after if you want to ask staff
Okay,
questions, okay?
I'll just ask Isaac then. I'm just, because I've heard a bit of commentary about the price point per ride. So are there things like group passes or things like that to make it more affordable for people that you have, or that you could, if you have those, just be maybe more mindful about communicating it more broadly? Yeah, I'm also just curious about the setup cost. Is it still reasonable that it's in the second year it's $85,000 for a setup cost when we've already gone through this process once before?
Through you, Chair, we have a number of different pass options that are in the app that are available in the payment section that are very clearly communicated. The monthly pass is the best value. It's $100 a month for a rider, and that's unlimited riding for the month, up to 90 minutes of riding a day. We factor that into what the average trip time is and ensuring that there's availability of fleet so people just aren't running the scooters or taking them home and that sort of thing. We also have the 3-day and weekly pass, which again are quite affordable options. We do have our access pass here, and we are, open to looking at how we can better communicate its availability in the community for those that are facing financial hardship. We do have a very non-invasive way of asking for proof, so whether it be some sort of documentation from government or a pay stub or whatever the case may be. They submit it through an online form, and we discount their pass, and then they just need to renew that verification of that situation a year from the date they submit it. So that would cut all of their pass options in half in cost by 50%. For students, we've been working very hard communicating through newsletters on campus events, Scoot Safe events that are targeted at students, all those sorts of things, to encourage students to use their email address to sign up for Neuron. If they do that, they automatically receive a 30% discount off their pass. So these are built into the app already. They're options that are available in addition to the pay-as-you-go. However, pay-as-you-go does remain the most popular option for riders. I can say that we are looking at other pricing strategies right now. It is feedback we've heard that pricing can go high on the pay-as-you-go, and so we're looking at how to address that feedback. So that issue is there. In terms of the $85,000, I believe that's the fees that you collect. I think you're referring to potentially from us as an operator. That's what is in our agreement in terms of paying the municipality each year, and we pay fees in multiple municipalities. And so I can't speak to if you think it's too high or too low. It's ultimately up to council to decide, but it is the agreement we have. What I can say is that when we look at fees, lower fees in municipalities are generally a better thing for operators in terms of creating flexibility for us to do extra things that you may want in the community, like running more Scoot Safe events or improving operational response times, those sorts of things. We can create different opportunities in that regard. But other municipalities choose to look at how to reinvest those fees that are collected. And I think staff are looking at that right now in a way that's probably going to have a very good outcome for the region. And so if that's the case, I can leave that with staff and council to make a decision on what they may want to do with those resources.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Liggett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Isaac, can you explain to me how it works? So if somebody on a scooter who doesn't have insurance, because they're not required to, causes an accident with somebody in a motor vehicle, then that means that, and you don't take any liability out on that, right? Like, you don't have insurance on that, right?
Through you, Chair, we are insured and the riders are insured as well. We offer insurance to the riders. So they have a degree of protection as well, as long as they're abiding by the terms and conditions they agree to. So, for example, if a rider is in clear breach of the terms and conditions, for example, they have had a drink and gotten on the scooter and then they're involved in a motor vehicle accident, same as your vehicle insurance would void your insurance for that, be very similar on an e-scooter.
So it's the driver of the vehicle, their insurance has to pick it up.
It depends on the situation, but the rider is insured. So if there is an incident where, for whatever reason, a rider is involved in an incident and they become injured as a result of a motor vehicle, that rider would be insured.
Is insured
Is
through
insured.
you.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I think that is it for questions, Isaac. Thank you very much. This is very much a good news story. I remember when we were launching the pilot and there was hesitation when I looked at all of the numbers and the uptake by the community. I think it's excellent, and I think it's an option that adds to our residents for how they get around. So similarly, as someone would ride a bike, I think, you have to be responsible, and part of this is on the person who's using the vehicle in terms of things like being inebriated and all of that. So thank you for answering those questions.
Thanks.
Okay, we are on to the consent agenda now. So we will now proceed with the consent agenda. If you wish to remove an item from the consent agenda.
Chair James, can I pull 7.1.2, the accessible bus stop?
Okay, so
report?
we will pull that one. Does anybody else want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, that's fine. We will pull that. So we will only, so 7.1.1 is on the consent agenda. I need a mover for that. Councillor Foxton, seconder, Councillor Selenin. Okay, so you'll be prompted in e-scribe. Yeah, he might have gone. Okay, so that's carried. So 7.1.2, that's the Grand River Transit Bus Stop Design Guidelines. For information, I believe we have staff here to answer any questions. Okay, who's Councillor Hunick?
Thank you, Chair
Yes.
James. I have a couple of questions. I know that the Mobility Plus buses are accessible, which I'm very thankful for, and I know that all GRT conventional buses are accessible. But what I want to confirm is, are the Medi buses and mini buses that are used for routes with less ridership, do they currently have accessible buses?
Through you, Chair, I don't know the answer on the minibus. I would imagine with those 4 vehicles that we wouldn't operate a bus that didn't have a ramp or other accessible features, but I don't know that today, so I'm happy to provide that in follow-up.
That for council,
Absolutely.
that would be
Yeah.
excellent. Secondly and lastly, Chair James, I noticed that on page 13 of the accessible bus stop report, it indicates that Mobility Plus is the service for residents of Waterloo region that cannot use the conventional transit services. I realize that we are working to change that perception because many people, like myself, use a hybrid of both conventional buses and Mobility Plus services, depending on whether bus stops are accessible and weather and all kinds of other factors. And so I'm wondering if it's possible to change the wording on that, or if we're too late in the game.
Through you, Chair, you are correct, Councillor. That is an incorrect use of language. As you know, folks who qualify for our Mobility Plus service often also ride conventional. That is one of the nice features of the eligibility. So a correction needed, and in line with our paradigm shift towards kind of an improving mobility service. So I don't know our ability to correct language. I can work with clerks just to make sure that that's clear.
Okay.
but I think we've corrected the record
And I
now,
have
so
suggested wording for you that my assistant can provide to you. That would be helpful.
thank you.
Okay, Councillor Selenin.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I had a few questions. On page 35 of the report in stops in rural areas, it specifies that rural stops need to meet 50% of the stated value to qualify for amenities and upgrades. What exactly does that mean?
I also don't have a good answer, through you, Chair, sorry, on that question. I have a team watching right now, so I'm sure by the end of our questions, that one will come through and I'll be able to have an answer. Apologies.
Perfect. And then my next question, which kind of relates to where I think that 50% is going, but when I looked through your standard, enhanced, and then major stops, you have different recommendations. And I was curious because you do say in rural that there could be a case-by-case basis. I know in Baden we have our local high school students are asking for more waste receptacles along the regionally owned road, and there happens to be 3 bus stops along the regionally owned road. Is there possibility for a conversation to have waste receptacles at those stops?
Through you, Chair, my favorite topic, waste at transit stops. Yes, ongoing. So I think the guidance, and the reason the guidance is so important on the type of stop, the volume of travelers, the type of service, is because a lot of these stops are not delivered by the GRT team. They're delivered by our partners in municipalities, they're delivered by our design and construction group. So this is our way to have the kind of lead-in conversation to what that discussion should be about shelters, waste removal, other amenities, snow storage, all of the things that make a stop function well. So guidelines to lead into that kind of case-by-case discussion for the needs and requirements.
Great. And one last one, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair. On the case-by-case, I'm curious in the rural, I know at least in Wilmot, none of our stops would qualify for the conversation of bus benches just based off of our not as heavily used stops, but we do also have an aging population. And I know that I have had a lot of people who use our bus, our seniors, often just going down the road to the post office or going to the grocery store, and certainly having somewhere to sit is something that they've asked. Again, would that be something you guys would be open to having a conversation on?
Yeah, through you, Chair, this is a really interesting discussion, right? Because you look to place amenities in areas of high volume and high frequency, and then areas of low volume and low frequency where people might wait longer are in need of those amenities. So yes, and I'm anticipating a question shortly on the level of investment or the timeline to achieve full accessibility and pads. But yes, I think it's important that we have this guidance because it allows us to communicate. But I also think there are unique circumstances in which we need to look at the travel patterns and usage.
That's great. I just wanted to know that those conversations could be had. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Verbanovic.
Thank you very much, and thanks, Mr. Spooner, for the report. I too want to continue on with your favorite topic, garbage receptacles. And just really want to get some clarity, because as we know, this was a big issue and we needed to bring them back last year outside of the budget process because of the cut that had happened. I know we put them in place in a number of locations. There's some where there's certainly still community desire to see them take place. And I really want to make sure that in urban environments, there's almost the notion that if we build some sort of structure there, at the very least, they're there, and probably some other stops over and above that. And so does this plan call for that?
Through you, Chair. The plan recognizes the need for waste receptacles. It does not weigh in on the provision or increase in GRT-provided waste receptacles. I think we are having ongoing discussions internally about the best way to deliver that. The goal is to have a bus stop that is clean of waste. We also know that they provide services to the broader community in areas where there aren't. But the plan at this point doesn't look at individual amenities and growth of those.
So if we approve this today, and that's not included.
Just a point of clarification, it's just a report, FYI.
It's no approval today?
No approval, this
Okay,
is just for
so
information.
this will come back. then.
Ongoing, yep.
Okay, then I guess I would just suggest as you take it back for additional work, that really look to be built into the plan, because it's something I'll be looking for when it comes back. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. All right, so that was just for information. We are moving on to the regular agenda. Item 8.1.1, the project approval for the West Montrose Covered Bridge rehabilitation with the Township of Woolwich. I've got Commissioner Rose here who can speak to this.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to speak to this.
Hold on one second.
I have a question.
Councillor Liggett?
Yeah, I don't see my thing up here, but I requested to speak.
Okay, it wasn't showing.
I had a question.
Is it something that you can email?
No, I think people need to hear it. So on page 47 of your report, it goes into new shelters at stops. But the way you've got this done, it looks like we're not putting shelters at new stops. Is that right? Like you've got to know where it goes, and then you've got a yes, but it all ends up back in a no block.
Through you, Chair, I'll have to, I don't have page 47 in front of me, but I'll have to review. But the intent is we will continue to provide shelters at those high frequencies. So I think there's a chart, and I'm not sure if it's on page 47, that shows, as an example, an I-Express type stop. It should have a black dot that indicates that that would receive a shelter. So if it's unclear in the report, that's the action for me to.
Oh, okay, so I just want to make a comment to okay. So I have concerns with that because we live in a winter country, right? And with climate change coming, there's a lot of stuff happening. So how do we build up the ridership if we're not providing the shelters and proper pads for people? To me, it's like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So if I could just leave that with you and you could get back to us later. Or if you want to do it now?
Through you, Chair, if I may, there's a really good, so the question I was anticipating, roughly 2,700 total stops, 72% of those today have accessible pads. Various reasons, sometimes they're on a road that doesn't yet have a hard shoulder, so we'll wait for that to come. But the goal is to have that in place. Today, our capital budget for stops and stop improvements is just $441,000. And so the thought on that is to move through about 50 stops a year. We're about 15 years away from achieving just basic accessibility on pads. So what we're looking at now through the development of the 25 to 30 GRT business plan is how to accelerate that. So accessibility absolutely required within the life of that plan, but then also additional amenities. So appreciate shelters provide relief from snow, wind, sun, all of it. They're an important piece for us of the infrastructure, but it is an investment plan. So we'll bring that and do that work through the business plan so that we can help guide.
So not just the you spoke about the pads and how you're going to speed that up, but the shelters as well as part of it? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
You made me feel good, thanks.
Okay, good, you're feeling good, Councillor Liggett. Okay, on to Commissioner Rose is going to introduce the report 8.1.1. And there is a recommendation, so we will need a mover and seconder for this.
Thank you, Chair James. I wanted to bring this report to Council's attention. It is a routine report because we're just asking for the approval of the design concept and a number of other recommendations. However, I thought this was a really good example of how staff in my department, specifically in the design and construction division, interact with the community with respect to public engagement. And I wanted to highlight that for council because I think that sometimes we forget it's not just all about building something, it's actually engaging with the community that's interested in that infrastructure. So the bridge itself, you all know the bridge. It's iconic to the region, built in 1881. It's part of, it's actually the only bridge that's left, covered bridge that's left in in Ontario, and it's a tourist destination as well. And when I moved to the region many moons ago, I was told it was called the Kissing Bridge. I didn't know it was called the West Montrose Covered Bridge, so I thought that was a nice, iconic name for it. So with respect to the engagement, I just especially wanted to thank our project manager, Michelle Pinto, Skylar Van Kroestum, who's the manager, or sorry, the head of engineering with respect to this, and Frank Cosa, who's our new director of design and construction, is just sitting over there. Give a wave, because they really went above and beyond, I think, with respect to this, because they know about the significance of this bridge and what it means to the region and the people who live around it. We've had surveys, meetings with bridge keepers, the West Montrose Resident Association. There's been 4 of those. They're very active members, and even today I've received, I think, 4 emails from a member of the bridge keepers on the bridge. They're very interested in what we're doing there, and constantly and continuously call and email staff with their ideas. And I think that we've done a great job responding to them. We've even invited the National Society for the Preservation of Covered Bridges. We've had meetings with the Township's Heritage Advisory Committee, the Region's Heritage Advisory Committee. We've had an open house, and we've even consulted with the Mennonite community, which I think is awesome, because they use that bridge as well. And what we've done with this consultation is, we've taken that into consideration. So one of the things that the bridge keepers in particular were interested in was, build it the way it was in 1881. Well, we can't do that because we have a new bridge code now. But we did consider that they wanted to have an all-wood bridge considered, and so we were able to working with a wood expert to actually make that happen. So I'm pleased to say that we were able to keep in with the design, the original design of the bridge. And we also worked with, it was mostly bridge keepers, with other small things with respect to the bridge for rehabilitation, including the approach and height restriction bars, which you will probably have seen mentioned in the correspondence from Tony Dowling. I just wanted to end by saying that this is a conceptual design. We will be moving into detailed design pending council approval of this, and continue to work with the community and with the Township of Woolwich as we work on rehabilitating this beautiful bridge that really is an incredible part of the region.
Thank you, Jennifer. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate what Commissioner Rose said. There's been a lot of work done on this. I know there have been a few iterations already at the design stage. The bridge keepers are very engaged and do a lot of research and have brought that to the table, and staff have worked with them, I think, very well and extensively. So I'm really pleased to support the design. I did check back with our Heritage Committee, and they're happy with it from everything I know. So it's exciting to see it be renovated and fixed up before it falls apart completely. It's a great economic development, historical, and tourism draw for our area. So and I'm assuming as you're going through that, you'll address the questions that Tony has here. I don't think I need to reiterate the questions, because to date you've, I think, answered things that have been questioned. But I will ask about the consultation with the Mennonite community. So was it with the, do you know who the consultation was with? Because we have a few different Mennonite communities, and some of the buggies are different than others.
Through the chair to Councillor Shantz, I don't have the name right with me, but maybe it'll pop up as we're talking. Okay, here we go. This is our wonderful project manager, Michelle, who is responding to me. It's Joshua Brubaker, and it was provided to us by the township, that name.
Okay, very good. And yeah, thank you to Frank, to Skylar, and to Michelle for their work with the community on this.
I take it you're prepared to move this when it comes.
Yes,
Absolutely. Okay, so Councillor Liggett.
Thank you, again, Madam Chair. I'm assuming that this is designated, when it says it's got the heritage designation, that's under the Ontario designation. Is that correct? And the reason I ask is because I know there's national designation, that's a heritage designation that's available, But when you start to change the structure too much and the materials, you lose the possibility for that designation as well as the funding for it. So can you talk, I know that happened with Sheave Tower because somebody errantly decided it needed an upgrade, right? So there is no possibility anymore for funding or national heritage designation. So can you speak to that, Jennifer?
Yes, so through the chair to Councillor Leggett, the bridge is designated under the Ontario Heritage Act, and I know that the team has been working closely with the heritage groups in Woolwich and with the region to make sure that we won't lose any funding with respect to some of the things that we're doing with the bridge. But I think that because we have, we're going to continue to make it a wooden bridge, make it safe for passage, that it's probably more heritage-like than our first original design, conceptual design we went to the public with, which included steel girders.
So Ontario designation, but so no national, so we're not even considering, or Woolwich isn't considering doing anything like that for designation and funding?
We haven't talked about that at that level.
Okay.
I can certainly ask council.
Okay, thanks to both of you.
Thanks. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you very much, and well done. It must have been exciting for you to do this. It must have been a great project. I didn't hear what Councillor Shant said about the letter from Tony Dowling, was it? So did you respond to those, or have you looked at that, and does he have some valid points? Or?
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor Foxton, we have a response ready to go back to Tony Dowling, and a lot of what the team has told me is a lot of the items that he is highlighting are minor in nature that we can probably resolve through the detailed design portion. So the larger issues that he brought forward about making it a wooden bridge and bringing in this expert on the national preservation of wooden bridges, we've dealt with a lot of those major issues already, the approach to the bridge, height restrictions, et cetera. So these other things are just, devils in the details, right, that we'll work through with the detailed design.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And I know it is the Kissing Bridge too. So when I saw it, I'm like, wait a second, it's the same one. Okay, so we have a mover, Councillor Shant, seconder, Councillor Foxton. Okay, we will call the vote. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, I'm for. I just couldn't get on to it, so thank you.
Okay, so that is carried. Exciting. Looking forward to seeing the design as you continue this, Jennifer. Okay, we are now moving on to item 9, information and correspondence. So we do have the committee tracking list and then the correspondence from Tony Dowling, which Commissioner Rose has confirmed there is a response that will go back to him. Is there any other business? Okay, seeing none. Rob, you're hiding. Okay, the next meeting is March 5th, 2024. Now we're going to adjourn. Is there a motion to have somebody move? Okay, Councillor Liggett, Councillor Hunick to second. Now you'll vote in e-scribe. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Oh, yes. Say yes.
Oh, I know. Okay, so that is carried. Okay, so we now need, do we vote to adjourn? Is that what we just did? Yeah, okay. All right, it's been a long day. Okay, we are going to move into a special council meeting after this. So we'll take a 10-minute break, 5-minute break or so. Chair Redmond will call us to order when it's time.